Nora Speaks is a weekly podcast that tugs at the soul and consciousness of the Black community. With show topics such as youth empowerment, education, women's impact, and civic engagement, Nora Speaks challenges the listener to not only join the movement, but be the movement. On the show, you'll learn from insightful guests who have demonstrated capacity in these fields and more, and I'm your host, Nora Muhammad. Welcome to the show. Welcome to episode 248 of the Nora Speaks podcast, and I am your host, Nora Muhammad. I am glad to be back with you, the Nora Speaks audience, and I'm looking forward to sharing some important information with the audience that I came across. And, on the Nora Speaks podcast, it is the goal and the intention to bring information that's relevant, that's timely, and to expose circumstances, known or unknown, that we are confronted with, or circumstances in our community and that impact us as a people that we should be confronting. And this episode is no different. In episode 248, I'm going to be talking about the dangers that are lurking in many of the products that we commonly find in our households, specifically Black households. And statistics that I came across last week that I found terribly alarming is that 50% of products that are advertised to Black women contain toxic chemicals that are impacting our health in really substantial ways. Again, 50% of products advertised to Black women contain toxic chemicals that are impacting the health and well-being of Black women. And that's compared to about 7% of products that are advertised to white women that contain chemicals that can be damaging. I'll also add that Black women buy 9 times more of these products than Caucasian women do. And I think it's also important to note that the Black hair industry in 2017 generated $2.5 billion in revenue. And so I titled this episode, episode 258, Beauty Industry Death Trap. Now let's talk about some of these chemicals. I'm going to talk about 3 in particular: parabens, phthalates, and formaldehyde. And just so that the audience can be informed about the products that we spend our money on, that we bring home and we apply to our hair, to our skin, some that we ingest, and that we apply even to our infant children, our infant babies. This is something that I think is important for us to know. Parabens are chemicals that are preservatives, and they are added to beauty products and other products, including food. They're added to increase the shelf life of these products. And parabens are found in shampoos, they're in face creams, they're in serums, shower gels, baby lotion, toothpaste, deodorant, some pharmaceuticals, things that we buy from the pharmacy over the counter or across the counter. And parabens are also in food and beverages. But specifically in this episode, I'm talking about those so-called beauty products that we buy. And most parabens, or the most commonly used ones that we may find, and this is what we should be looking for when we're reading the labels on some of these bottles or these jars. There's methyl paraben, there's ethyl paraben, propyl paraben, isopropyl, and butyl paraben. And the American Chemical Society estimates that currently parabens are in 85% of personal care products. 85% of these chemicals are in personal care products. Now, let me explain to you why we should avoid parabens. A paraben is a chemical that mimics the estrogen in a person's body, and these are endocrine disruptors. And studies have shown, researchers, that parabens impact the function or mechanism of normal breast cells, which can create abnormal cell growth, which uh, leads to an increased risk of breast cancer. Remember, cancer cells are cells that are abnormally replicating, right? Or abnormally growing. And parabens are chemicals that influence this abnormal growth. Parabens are linked to reproductive, immunological, neurological, and skin problems. How many times have we seen young people as they're trying to figure out, the right products? And we know that Black people like a lot of products, and we're constantly experimenting on what's working, and we see our young women, our young men trying so many different products, and we are having health implications, and we can't quite link which product we've used that's creating the health implication, nor are we always aware that these products that we're using have health implications. So rashes, asthma, and a few other issues that I'm going to talk about. Um, the personal care products that we're buying in these stores that we're getting off the shelves, the things that we're paying money for are the greatest contributors to paraben exposure. Now, there are some things that we may not be able to help, that those things that perhaps we could think about air pollution. Perhaps we could think about some water contaminants, right, that we may not be aware of. They're in our water, right? We're encouraged to use filters. We're encouraged to boil our water, buy, water. However, these things that we're going into the store and we're paying good money for, they are the greatest contributors to our exposure. And so let me just share with you some of the impacts. When I say that these things are chemicals that mimic estrogen and are endocrine disruptors, our endocrine system in our bodies influences so much. The regulation, right? The things that we expect to happen in our body that are just normal and natural, that we're really not thinking about because we expect our body to perform as it's been designed to. But when we apply these products to our face, right? The makeup industry, how many videos are we seeing of young women doing these makeup tutorials, and now men and boys doing makeup tutorials, putting this stuff on our face, slathering it on. And I'll tell you, sometimes when I see these videos, there's so many layers, there's so many different products, there's so many different brands that people are putting on their skin at the same time, putting these things on our lips, on our eyes. And they are altering the normal functioning of our bodies. So that's a little bit about the parabens. Now remember, these things are chemical preservatives, right? So whether they're in cosmetics or in food, right? If they're made to last for years on a shelf, I always say, well, how long are they lasting inside of our bodies, right? So let's talk about phthalates. Phthalates are chemicals that are used mainly as what's called a plasticizer. These are things that are added to plastics so that they're flexible, so that they're transparent, right? It's supposed to enhance their durability and their longevity. Now, phthalates are chemicals that are banned in the European Union, but we find them very common in the products that we buy from the shelves in stores in the United States. I'm saying that they're banned in the EU, the European Union, where there's a lot of so-called food chemicals or food products that are also banned in the European Union. But we'll get into that in a later episode. Let's talk about these phthalates, right? There's so many different kinds of phthalates, and you can do your own research, but I'll share some information with you here, right? There's dibutyl phthalate, DBP, dibutyl phthalate, and that's something that's commonly used in nail polish. The European Union has listed this as an endocrine disrupting compound of, quote, high concern. There is another phthalate that is DEP, and this is commonly used in scented products to do what? To enhance the lingering scent of perfumes or lotions or body sprays, right? You know, we like to buy these scents, these colognes, these fragrances that are long lasting. Well, it's the phthalate that enhances the longevity of these chemicals or of these fragrances. And then there's another phthalate. It's di-2-ethyl hexylphthalate, DEHP, and that's something that's found in eyelash glue. And now we see this obsession or infatuation that our women, black women, have with these fake eyelashes. Now, these things are toxic, just like the parabens, and this DEP phthalate, it is the highest in the urine of non-Hispanic black women, because we are the highest consumers of these products and we use them the most. It's not like we're buying them and not using them. Well, we are using them. And I'll share some what the long-term exposure of these things do to our bodies. So we talked about the disruption of the endocrine system, right? The hormone system in our bodies. Now, you know, the endocrine system, I mean, so many of our body functions are important. You know, we wouldn't want to get rid of one in favor of another. However, this one is so important as it produces hormones that, impact our growth, impact our digestion, and impact our reproduction. And these scientists are reporting that phthalates are interrupting the reproduction or the impacting the reproductive system of women, impacting digestion, impacting growth, the development of the reproductive organs, fertility in males and females, the neurodevelopment in children, right? Our brain development, the brain development of children. These phthalates that we're exposing ourselves to are putting our children in jeopardy, putting our health in jeopardy. Phthalates are linked to obesity, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, cardiovascular disease, preterm birth, preeclampsia, right? That's high blood pressure during pregnancy, and also gestational diabetes, diabetes that's brought on through pregnancy. This is the impact of us exposing ourselves to phthalates. Phthalates also increase our risk of chronic diseases like allergies and asthma, type 2 diabetes, which I mentioned. And so, you know, they're found in these products that we, pull off these store shelves: perfumes, nail polish, hairspray, soap, shampoo, moisturizers. The phthalate DEHP that I mentioned earlier is confirmed, not suggested, not linked, but confirmed to cause cancer in animals. Confirmed. We have to be very, very thoughtful, mindful, considerate about what we are exposing our bodies to. The increased challenges that Black women have at conceiving children, it's alarming. I mean, the Black woman is the first woman on the planet Earth, and if she's having a problem conceiving, well, we are in trouble. But when we don't know that our issues with conception are related to what we're putting on and in our bodies, then we're just, we're just in the dark to these things. And so I thought it was important to share this with the Nora Speaks audience so that as you listen, you can share it with your nieces as you see them, going to the store, buying these products, using these products. We've already have heard all about how these relaxers have been linked to fibroids and tumors and other reproductive harm in women, specifically Black women, right? Just because it is being sold to us off the shelf, just because the color on the jar is yellow, green, and red, or red, black, and green for that matter, doesn't mean that it is good for us. So these phthalates, these parabens, they are in what we are putting on our bodies. One thing I will add about phthalates, because you may say, well, look, I don't want to buy products that have parabens. I don't want to buy products that have phthalates. I will tell you, if you're reading the labels, and I hope that you are, or maybe now you will begin reading these labels, products may have phthalates in them, but it won't say phthalate. It won't have that word there. It'll have the word fragrance, because some, of these, perfume houses, they have proprietary chemicals or compositions, right? And so they're not going to identify the chemicals that they're using. So we, as the consumer, just see fragrance, right? But in that fragrance, they use phthalates for that. So the last product I want to talk about is the formaldehyde, right? Formaldehyde. We may know that formaldehyde is something that's used in funeral homes, right? It's used to preserve corpses or dead bodies to prevent decomposition so that the family can have an open casket, right? Well, formaldehyde is a known human carcinogen, a known human carcinogen, and formaldehyde is in fact in personal care products. And we are, and don't forget, our skin is also an organ. And what we put on our skin is absorbed and enters our bloodstream. So just because it's a topical application doesn't mean that it's not getting inside of us. And clearly, the evidence and the research and the science is showing us that our exposure to these products, to these chemicals, to these toxins are negatively impacting our health. And so I'm going to share with you again what I shared with you at the beginning of this episode, that 50% of products advertised to Black women contain these chemicals. 50%. And I'll add that the chemicals that are added to these products that we're buying and applying to very sensitive areas on our bodies, they don't have to be evaluated for safety. Now, we may think that the FDA or the Food and Drug Administration is ensuring what companies are selling to customers are safe, but that's not necessarily so. In another episode, I'll talk about GRAS, generally recognized as safe, and, the kind of injustice that's happening there. So companies are adding chemicals to these products to enhance the color, to enhance the scent, to enhance the lasting impact of the scent, so the scent lasts longer. They're putting these chemicals in these products so that they can stay on the shelves longer, and they are destroying the health of Black women. Now, breast cancer is something that too many of us are impacted by. And the breast cancer rate for Black women is alarming. And Black women have the most aggressive types of cancers. And not only do we have the most aggressive types of cancer, we have 40% higher breast cancer death rates. 40% higher. I also share with you that Black women younger than age 50, have a death rate that's twice as high as white women at the same age. So much of what we think is safe is not safe. We have been, elbow deep, hip deep, neck deep, shoulders deep, in these beauty products and in this, the beauty industry. We're applying these unknown chemicals to our bodies. We're seeing the rate of disease increase, and we don't know that they are linked to what we're putting inside and on our bodies. The beauty industry is a death trap. So when I say on this podcast, accept your own and be yourself, we don't have to apply these poisons to our skin to alter the way we look so we can be beautiful. No, we can think right, eat right, and live right, and our beauty will be resonant. We don't need to go to the store and be the greatest consumer of so-called beauty products, and then these products are poisoning us and increasing disease in our communities. No, it's a beauty industry death trap, sisters. Just accept your own. Be yourself. Live right, eat right, think right, and you and I will be just fine. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. Until next time, stay in peace.
We were brought here as a piece of property, and to keep that piece of property, it is to not allow the property to know the value of the property. What I mean by that, if you had known the history of yourself, you would not have been made a slave. And you won't be a slave now if you have a knowledge of yourself. It's hard to enslave a person that have equal knowledge with you. You just can't do it. And so this knowledge of yourself is the thing that will free you from what you have been suffering from.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. Be on the lookout for a new episode coming at you fresh next week. And as always, if you want to learn more about me and the work that I do, visit my website, norahmuhammad.com. Or if you have a listener question, email me at info@noraspeaks.com. You can also follow the Nora Speaks podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Nora Speaks Podcast. I'll be sure to include links in the show notes. If this show has value to you, please subscribe, rate, and review, and share it with family and friends. And be sure to check out previous episodes. And remember, don't just join the movement, be the movement. Stay in peace.